welcome everyone to our next program for our 17th annual Native American Studies, Native American Heritage Month celebration. Our speaker today, Vincent Schilling, is let me get this right, Akwesasne. There you go.
Hey, don't worry. It's no worries because it stumbles the best.
I'm going to go with Mohawk. He is a journalist, an Army veteran, former associate editor for Indian Country Today, a radio host, former radio host, a public speaker, a Rotten Tomatoes critic, and the executive vice president of Schilling Media. We were just talking earlier about that your media company, and humbly made yourself vice president.
Yeah, well, I'm now president.
Oh, congratulations on the promotion. But we're delighted to have Vincent Schilling join us via Zoom today. So please welcome Vincent Schilling. Vincent.
Hey, thanks so much. Appreciate you having me. I'm also the founder and editor of my new site, the Native Viewpoint, which is doing phenomenally. I'm very, very excited about it. And I focus quite a bit on pop culture as well as historical teacher resources, et cetera, et cetera. So I was thrilled that you asked me to do this and talk about Native Americans in pop culture. And as a lot of you who are watching, and a lot of you who are, television film enthusiasts like I am, I'm obsessed with media, TV, film. I was first introduced to the concept of medium as the message and media as the shrinking, world by my broadcasting teacher who spoke about Marshall McLuhan in college. So if you guys haven't heard of Marshall McLuhan, he's a very interesting guy. And as someone who is Native and Akwesasne Mohawk, a member of my tribe, I was obsessed with Native Americans in film and television, especially being born and being born in '67, a child of the '70s. I'm 55 years old today. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, nativeviewpoint.com. As a child of the '70s, I didn't see a whole lot of Native Americans on television and film other than, your horrible Westerns. And I'll talk a little bit about that. So, I will start my program now. So Native American Native American culture can be pop culture too. And a lot of these images that you see on this screen, I'm going to be talking about today. And, there are some exciting things. Are we exactly where we need to be as far as I'm concerned as a film critic and arts and entertainment writer, as well as a book author, etc.? No, we have a long ways to go, but it's wonderful to see the things that we see. I mean, there are some phenomenal things. So just a tiny bit about me, and you guys were so nice to talk about it a little bit, but I'm a Native author, speaker, journalist. My Mohawk name is Jogalis, a roll member of my tribe, Akwesasne Mohawks, award-winning photojournalist, former member of the White House press pool. So I've, seen Obama speak. I've been invited to the vice president's house, Vice President Joe Biden at the time, and talked about Native authors, Native artists, Native journalists, Native musicians in my career as a journalist. I've written 4 books so far. I'm working on one now with Random House on residential schools. It's a very, very, very intense topic, but I'm very, very grateful to be doing it. My grandmother attended one of these schools. Public speaker, as you can see here today, content creator on social media, Vincent Schilling. And one thing I will say about my tribe, yes, as you can see, I have the kind of the snippet of the map over here. It's Akwesasne is distinct and it sits on the border between Ontario, Quebec, and New York. So Akwesasne literally sits on the absolute border between New York and Canada, US and Canada. And as you can see, here's my ID card. Actually, I've got a new card now when I'm wearing glasses. But something interesting about being a Native American person is that quantify our blood quantum by an ID card. Anybody else have an ID card for their race? Yeah, it's not too common. Yeah, exactly. So, I made fun of myself as well as other friends of mine that are Native. We make fun of ourselves, and like the only other ID cards for race or pedigree is for racehorses and dogs that are AKC registered. So, but it's kind of a funny part, but and also a little bit serious if you think about it. It's kind of interesting that we have to be designated that way. So some of the publications I've written for, the magazine over there in the corner, American Indian Magazine for the Smithsonian, my site, Native Viewpoint, of course, Indian Country Today for many, many years. It's a fantastic publication. Love it sincerely. Always like to support them. Native American Times, and some of the local stuff, Virginian Pilot, Tidewater Parent, Inside Business, Arthritis Today. My wife said I really became an awesome journalist when I wrote for Women's World, so she's very happy about it. She's very happy about that, very excited. So, of course, I'm a contributor to television stations, CBC, MSNBC, NPR, CNN, etc. I've appeared on television many times to talk about different things. And it's kind of nice, not just in November, although it is November. Happy Native American Heritage Month. So some of my experiences as a journalist, I will tell you, has been very, very interesting. If you look at the picture up there in the corner, the opposite side of me, you'll see, backwards. Which is Nathan Phillips and Nick Sandman at the Lincoln Memorial, stare down, if you remember, where Nathan Phillips was hitting a drum, and the young kids from Covington Catholic School kind of stood there and were kind of watching what was going on. I was the journalist who broke that story and identified Nathan Phillips. I have met with him before. I've written many articles that went viral, including Pocahontas, an article on Pocahontas about the true history of Pocahontas, the true history of Columbus. And above me, of course, you'll see the Adam Sandler film, Ridiculous Six, and many Native actors walked off the set. And when they did many years ago, I'm trying to remember the year. I don't have it written down in front of me. I think it was 2016, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember exactly. But Ridiculous Six, Native actors walked off the set, completely changing the movie and the way that Adam Sandler did it. And of course, I've done a lot of work over here to this side, which is Kansas City Chiefs, Washington Redskins. I have fought quite a bit about, hey, thank you for sharing, appreciate that. Quite a bit about, and then the Columbus article is 8 Myths and Atrocities about Columbus. If you're going to look up 8 Myths and Atrocities in Columbus, you'll see that article as well. And of course, I've done a lot of talking about arts and entertainment, including, when Rutherford Falls came out, we had interviews with Ed Helms, Michael Gray Eyes, Jana Schmieding, and Sierra Teller Ornelas. We were talking about Rutherford Falls, but I've talked about quite a bit in terms of arts, entertainment, musicians, etc. So I'm starting off something. I'm not going to jump right into pop culture, but I'm doing this for a reason. Okay, I'm doing this for a reason because I just kind of want you to have. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. So the reason I'm asking this question first is just to give you a bit of perspective, a personal perspective. And this is not a test other than your own personal perceptions. Some people may get them all right. Some people may not. It doesn't matter. I don't mind. I don't care if you get the answer correct or not. I just really want you to have a bit of personal self-reflection and knowledge of who you are and where your mindset sits in terms of what you see or don't see in your own mind or your initial knee-jerk reaction to something. So I'm asking you to kind of reflect on what have you learned. And what I usually find, I've asked these series of questions in classrooms, and what I usually find is very interesting is that for kids, like say I'm speaking to a group of like 6th graders, I'll find a lot of the kids will be like getting the questions correct, while the teachers, who in anywhere from 20s to 40s to 50s, don't get them as correct, which is a very interesting concept because as a 55-year-old man, my childhood, I would see a lot more of stereotype and racism than kids of today, which is a really wonderful thing to say. So the reason I'm asking these questions for the next few minutes is to just give you a bit of personal perspective before I start diving in to talking a little bit about pop culture. And I'm touching on it in the sense that I would love for you to do your own research. And I have some suggestions on things you can do or watch or take a look at and grow with us all in terms of learning a new and amazing perspective. It's really exciting to think that people watching today are going to be able to possibly change their perspective. So what have you learned in your life? What perspectives do you have in your life? The first series of questions I have, Native Americans, yes or no? So the pictures I'm going to show you, I simply want you to answer to yourself if they are Native American or not Native American. I remember going and having an event, hosting an event here in Virginia on Native American Heritage Month, which is November. And I had Native dancers and singers, drummers, etc. And a woman walked up and said, "I thought all the Native Americans were dead." And that actually happened, and that goes to show you that some people don't believe. And another time, I had it another year, and this lady looked at me and she goes, "Excuse me, sir." And I said, "Yes." She goes, "You're the host here?" I said, "Yes, yes." She goes, "You don't look Native American." I said, "Okay, ma'am. Imagine me with long braids and maybe a feather sticking out of my head." She goes, "Oh, I see it now." And I saw the light come on in her eye. I was just like, so if you're having trouble seeing me as a Native American, imagine me with braids. And that's where education comes from, film and television. So, okay. So the next series of photos, I want you to answer, are they Native American yes or Native American no? Okay. So these two folks I saw, these two gentlemen and the young lady behind them, are they Native American yes or no? Okay. No wrong answers, just let whatever you say. I would imagine many of you will say yes, okay? Okay. So Native American, yes or no? This is a person I interviewed in Inside Business years ago, and Native American, yes or no? So no wrong answers. This is a good friend of mine, Danny. I won't say his last name because he doesn't know he's on here. So, but he's an amazing, amazing guy. He's Lakota, very, very, very cool dude. U.S. Army veteran, as a matter of fact. This rock star, this guy's singing rock star music. Yeah, Native American. Yes or no? It's up to you. You decide yes or no. U.S. Senator Ben Campbell, Native American? Yes or no? This baseball player, hey, Native American baseball player? Yes? No? Anybody? Baseball players? Kyle Lowe's. Keith Anderson, Native American? You may use a lifeline. Okay, I'll tell you, yes, he is. This hockey player, hey, hockey player, Native American, yes, no, anyone? So, no wrong answers. Good friend of mine, he is Nottoway Indian Tribe of Virginia, so I can tell you, yes, I will give you this lifeline. Yes, he is. He's also a Black Indian, as a matter of fact. Hey, a skier. This guy's skiing on the slopes. Ross Anderson. Hey, there's a couple Andersons here. I didn't even realize that till I just did this. This guy in a turban. Thoughts? Native American? Yes or no? Native American, yes or no? A cowboy from the ranches of our Great Plains region. Is he Native American? Yes or no? Take your time. Take your time. I'm taking a sip of my tea here. All right. Next. Colonial Williamsburg, good friend of mine. Hey, firefighter. Is this firefighter Native American? Yes or no? Okay, so before I get into the next series of questions, let me tell you, now I really want you to think about how many you said yes to and how many you said no to, or vice versa, whatever. I will tell you this, every single solitary one of those people is someone who I've interviewed, and they are all Native American. Every single one. Every single person. Now, if you said no to any of these, that's okay. That's okay. When I do this in schools and stuff like that, I hear a lot of no's. And that's all right. This is not about calling you out and saying you're wrong. It's about recognizing what your mind sees, or what your mind jumps to, or what conclusions you may or may not jump to. Okay, that's the thought process there. Okay, so just know that this is a gentle recognition to whatever your thoughts are. And maybe some people did say all yes, and that's wonderful. Okay, so I have a few questions here. A test in perception and preconceived stereotypes. So I'm going to give you a couple sentences or words just as prompts to see what comes into your mind. And whatever comes into your mind, let it come. It's okay. Again, you don't have to tell anybody what you see. You don't have to tell anybody what you thought. I just want you to know and you to kind of look at it and see. And the reason I'm setting it up this way to talk about pop culture is I just want you to have a perspective of where your mindset is. Okay, of where your mind is thinking and what you're thinking, where you are now. Where is the ground zero point for you? Okay. So this person is the chief of the Nottoway Indian tribe of Virginia. This person is a chief, go-to person in the tribe. People come to this person. This is the leader of the tribe. Okay. What image do you see in your mind? Let that image come, and then I'm going to show you the chief of the Nottoway Indian tribe of Virginia. Okay. Interesting. So I've asked about this before, and a lot of people see, a lot of people think the giant headdress that you'll see, not giant, but the larger headdress you'd see for, the Lakota or the Plains style Indian headdress, and a lot of people, I don't think I can remember a time where someone has thought a woman. So this is about preconceived notions. But Lynette Alston is the chief of her tribe. She's a wonderful, amazing person. Very, very kind, wonderful, dear friend of mine who's done so much for her tribe. So, all right. So this person is a man. I will tell you that. Okay. There. I'll give you a little bit of a lifeline here. So imagine where your mind goes in terms of this. Okay. Or rather, acknowledge where your mind goes in terms of this. Okay. This person is Choctaw. This person is a community leader that teaches leadership to others as well. This person's father holds a sacred pipe from a treaty with the US government. So this is a Native person, Choctaw, community leader, and whose own father holds a sacred pipe treaty with the US government. What does your mind see? And I want your mind to visualize whatever it visualizes, acknowledge it, just kind of go, okay, that's what I see. That's what I see. All right, interesting. And here is this person. Anybody else see Lieutenant Mark Bowman of the Virginia Beach Police? Possibly not. Possibly not. So the reason I do this is to let you know where your mind automatically goes when you think of a Native American and what we're taught and what our perspectives are, what we think, what we assume. Okay. What do you see in your mind when you imagine this? Two Native Americans in the forest. Easy enough. What do you see in your mind when you think of two Native Americans in the forest? I'll give you a few moments to let this image populate in your brain. Anybody see two firefighters from the Golden Eagles Hot Shots? This was when I was in North Carolina, I believe it was 2012, going off memory, where I was invited to travel to North Carolina. And this is the Golden Eagles Hot Shots, which are the Sequan band of Kumeyaay Indians in San Diego, just outside of San Diego, actually in El Cajon. But they flew out to the forests of North Carolina to fight fires. And, and the interesting thing about hotshots and hotshot crews are very largely Bureau of Indian Affairs hotshot crews that go out and fight fires. And what was really interesting is, yeah, I'm about to tell you, great question, a hotshot crew. Oh, great, you put, good, thank you for putting that. And the interesting thing about these hotshot crews, which are usually firefighting crews commissioned by the Bureau of Indian Affairs or others to fight fires, and they don't use water most of the time. They use things like tools that dig out leaves and debris, or chop down trees to stop the path of fire so that the fire can't continue. So last one. So this native person regularly met with nations, senators, governmental leaders, and talked about native issues. This person is Wolf Clan of his tribe, cousin to the chief. What forms in your brain? Okay, that's me. All right, that was a little bit of a joke, but hey, there's me with Wayne Newton, right? And Wayne Newton in the upper, well, I guess if you'd be looking at left hand, but Wayne Newton is Mr. Las Vegas himself, and he is a direct descendant of Pocahontas. A lot of people don't know that, but Wayne Newton is Powhatan Potawatomi, direct descendant of the daughter of Pocahontas, and we'll talk a little bit about Pocahontas coming up. So let's start jumping into now these Native American stereotypes, shall we? That have come up thanks to film, television, and social media, even in some cases, or Halloween, or things that have come up historically, And here you see this Technicolor movie, smoke signal, with the Native Americans all looking like they're just lining that hillside, overcoming this poor boat full of people who literally have 2 pistols, and they all have guns, and and we'll talk about the sense of like a noble Indian savage versus the stoic Indian. And Buffalo Bill Cody started these things in a lot of ways when he had his Wild West show. He actually even did documentary films, so to speak. I say documentary films loosely, but he kind of, when he would bring Native Americans all over the country, it would either be the chief sitting like this, or they would fight in fights, and so a lot of this is so to say, this formulated the thought of America. This is what taught our children, because resources to teachers, unlike the ones who are so kind enough to be teaching you here today by inviting me, so graciously, a lot of instructors, shall we say, and teachers aren't so gracious about what they are willing to teach about Native Americans. So the fact I'm here is incredible and wonderful, and I'm so incredibly grateful for this opportunity. So thank you to you guys out here that invited me, as a matter of fact. So let's start when films were going for quite a while. By 1910, and this is a couple screen captures from The Red Man's View. And I'm just giving you a sense of how things were in the beginning of the 20th century, where 1/5 of the U.S. films were westerns. Westerns were huge. And it started out, so to speak, with Red Man's View and films of this nature, where it showed like the valiant Native American, and I thought it was kind of relevant in the fact that in the Red Man's View, the New York Dramatic Mirror said, "The helpless Indian race, it has been forced to recede before the advancing white, and as such is full of poetic sentiment." And this really was the sentiment for a while, until they started doing films about the savage Indian, and boy, did that change the landscape of film as we know it prior to today. I would say 20, 25 years ago, things were still struggling quite a bit. So here is something really interesting. And what's interesting is I discovered that in the research of this engagement, because I knew a lot of this, I knew about Birth of a Nation, but I didn't make the connection between D.W. Griffith. So in 1912, D.W. Griffith released The Massacre, which was portraying natives in a bad light. And Custer, the great guy that he is, according to Griffith, that is not necessarily the case at all, shall we say. So this is a couple of screen captures from The Massacre. And then D.W. Griffith later released The Birth of a Nation, formerly known as The Klansman. And D.W. Griffith essentially was lauding and speaking positively about the Ku Klux Klan in his film. So this goes to show where some of the subjectivity is. A lot of people don't realize Mount Rushmore was carved by an avowed white supremacist, a member of the Ku Klux Klan. So what happened back then? So the savage Indian concept, the Indian that killed the poor unsuspecting settler, or the settler that could come back and kill back, filled these theatrical seats, filled the movie theaters. They made a lot of money. So savage Indian made a lot more money than the peaceful native. So if you are a filmmaker who doesn't care so much about cultural sensitivities and you're going to make more money with a savage Indian, that's what they're going to do. So the cinema was not as lucrative with peaceful natives. So stereotypes created by television and movies were everywhere because it tended to really get more receptivity. Geronimo, look at Bugs Bunny. Some of you young folks may not even know who that is, but Bugs Bunny was pretty racist in his day. And as a kid, I watched Bugs Bunny quite a bit, and I didn't realize there is a scene in a Bugs Bunny cartoon where he's literally shooting the encroaching natives from a military base. And he shoots and he goes bang, 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 and he goes 1 little, 2 little, 3 little Indians, bang, 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 4 little, 5 little, bang. And he's like, oh, wait a minute. And he erases half the mark and he goes, wait a minute. That was a half breed. That's literally what a cartoon says. So you could see here, I Love Lucy, Peter Pan. And a lot of people don't realize just how racist some of the things Disney did back in the day. Yeah, Ouch is right. Swiss Family Robinson was terrible in terms of its, kind of racially motivated pirates. Again, Peter Pan, Disney's Pocahontas was a complete farce, and there are just some pretty terrible things. Don't even get me started on Song of the South. Absolutely. And as a child, at least for me, I did not realize some of these things were as racist as they were. There were so many Native people portrayed in movies that were not portrayed by Native people. And there were things known as paint downs, where they would hire actors and literally paint them red. And I'll talk about a place you can see a lot of this stuff in a documentary film that I absolutely adore in terms of how well done it is. So in a world taught by film and television, here's something that I'm saying, and this is my statement. And this banner is from the McAdory High School Trail of Tears sign in Alabama. And I believe this was 2016, where it says, "Hey, Indians, get ready to leave in a trail of tears round 2," because the team, the McAdory High School, was playing another team named the Indians. That was their team mascot. So I'm saying teachers didn't define Native people as much as filmmakers did, due to the availability of content. Now, here's why I'm saying this. It's very interesting because when I did a story on, and I actually, as a journalist, did a story on this, and this story went pretty viral all over the country, and it got, significant hits on websites. People talk, it was everywhere. It was all over news publications all over the country. So I talked to the teachers there, and I spoke to the principal, and I spoke to teachers there, and I said, why would this happen? I mean, this is so incredibly insensitive. And he's like, Vincent, I agree. And I have to give credit to the school, who was very gracious in responding to my calls. They were willing to be interviewed. And they were saying this is not acceptable. And I don't recall if it was the teacher or the principal, but I was talking to them both. And they said, Vince, do you know how much Native history are in our history books? And this is a school textbook. He said, Vincent, it's 1 page. 1 page. 1 page. So ask yourself, if you are a kid in high school just a few years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and you have 1 page in your history book about Native Americans, and everywhere else, Halloween, what people say about Thanksgiving, what people say about Columbus, what people say about Pocahontas and Disney, and all of your information about Native Americans does not come from teachers. Unlike today, Stephen, you guys all being so gracious here, these are teachers who don't have Zoom meetings with public speakers that are Native. I'll tell you that right now. So where do young people learn this stuff? Film, television, social media, etc. So this is why, because this school has 1 page in their history book, that this banner is able to come out to talk about the Trail of Tears in this way. It's horrible. And for those of you who don't know what the Trail of Tears were, Andrew Jackson instigated a removal policy of Native Cherokees away from their home in North Carolina and some of the surrounding areas, and forced them to walk. And it's called the Trail of Tears because so many people died. It's horrible. Look up the history. So we come to, even 30 years ago, and we start to see a little bit better content coming out. And as one thing I notice, if you look at Dances with Wolves, smoke signals, and I put smoke signals purposely because you remember the last one that had smoke signal with all those natives. Here is Irene Bedard and Adam Beach, and it's really, really wonderful to see that Native people in a comedy could do well, and it did very, very well in Indian country, in Native country, as well as Dances with Wolves was much more mainstream. You've got Kevin Costner and Graham Greene there, and it was wonderful to see natives on the screen, even though Dances with Wolves has a couple problems, because Charlie Hill, the comedian, made fun of it in the sense that when Kevin Costner meets the woman who's in the tribe, Charlie Hill's like, what? Why does she look like Betty Rubble? All the Native women are like, with they braid their hair nicely, but she's like got dirt on her face. So that was always kind of a joke. And then Wind River came out in 2017 with Elizabeth Olsen, Jeremy Renner, a lot of Native actors as well, talking about the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women. So this was unprecedented in the sense that was bringing up issues that are important to Native people. So again, as we can see, TV, television, film, etc., is responsible for teaching our children and an American audience, and the world audience. So we see social media, and boy, the screen is busy. I didn't mean to make it this busy. Social media is also now teaching our children, is now teaching the American audiences, and if you don't know who these two people are, that is Notorious Cree, who has, I think at last count, 700 billion followers on TikTok. I don't remember, but it's quite a bit. So, all right. So I was just talking to you about, Nathan Apodaca, Notorious Cree. I guess the ancestor wanted to jump in and chime in too. So I'm glad to have him. That happens sometimes. And, I've always learned as a public speaker, if something happens weird, don't ignore it. Everyone's human. Everything happens to different people. And that's kind of some of the fun about things that happen. I once had an interview with Shane Yellowbird, who sadly passed away. It was an amazing country artist. He and I during my radio show, he was supposed to meet me, and he had just driven 12 hours, had fallen asleep. And then I was talking to him, and then my entire keyboard ripped off my desk and fell on the ground. And we were just laughing because we're all human, and everyone has been there. So, for me, I don't worry about it. I don't let it ruffle my feathers, and let's enjoy life together, and, embrace what happens that's weird, so, but back on track to seeing these incredible social media accounts, and, people calling people out on social media that are people who say things that aren't culturally, respectful, and people get called out. Now, I'm a person who would rather try and teach. And as a 55-year-old guy, an elder in training, I'm not there yet, but I like to say in training. I'll probably get about 10 more years till I can claim that. But I like to say, sometimes your gut reaction might be to attack. But what I found, don't get me wrong, social media, some people are stubborn and you can't talk to them worth anything. But a lot of time what I find is if you offer to teach, oftentimes they can respond in a positive way. And I've always felt it's better to try and teach when possible. If they're jerks, move on. It's not worth your time, honestly, to have a heartache. But I love to try and teach when I can. And some of the nice thing about this is because of social media, and yes, for me, I have a direct correlation to the onset of social media as a dominant force in the world of media as the reason why diversity is a growing trend in media. It is because of social media, 100% in my view, because of social media, that things are going in a positive way for Native people. We still have a long way to go, as I've said many times, but we are in a wonderful place of growth and acknowledgement, and things, doing the best they can to change. Things like Disney, Marvel. Some of the largest once offenders against cultural appropriation are now doing the best they can, and that's a good place to be. So, as I once said to a group of individuals at Twitter, I was very, very fortunate to be asked to speak on Indigenous issues to the Twitter corporate folks there, and I said we are reshaping the film and television industry. And as I said with them, I said, Native people, we have a voice, and wonderful things are happening. We had 2 seasons of this fantastic show on Peacock Originals called Rutherford Falls. And it was historically the first ever Native American showrunner, Sierra Teller Ornelas, who was the showrunner. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's a hot button issue, that whole Elon Musk thing, isn't it? So as you can see, I have a check mark next to my name. So what's that mean for me? But Marvel is coming out with Disney's Echo, and that's Alakwa Cox, who is a deaf and Native American actress in real life, who is going to play Echo, who did already, but I say going to play Echo in her own series. And I was asked by Marvel to assist in the casting process of dancing extras and people who are wearing regalia. So what an incredible place to be. We had Prey and in the Predator franchise, and seeing Amber Midthunder play, this awesome actor, including Dakota Beavers, who was her brother. And it was just a fantastic series. I really thought it was the best film in the Predator franchise, and some people may agree with me. And one of the nice things about that is that one of the producers was Jane Myers, an actual Native person working on the production of this film. And she told me in an interview that during one scene that a Native actress walked by her who had a cradle board. She said, wait, that's not right. She took the cradle board home that night and made it culturally relevant to that period and to her tribe, etc. And what an incredible place to be. We certainly didn't used to be there. You know, the power of pop culture is a huge thing. You know, so when I interviewed Amber Midthunder, I was just talking to her and just going, wow. And she said, Native women have the freedom to do what they want with their life. And I was just like, we've come so far, you know. And I'm just like, and I was like, Amber, you are, and this is the moment where I told her that. She was like, ah. I said, Amber, I said, I am a Native journalist interviewing the Native American lead star of a massive film. And she was like, oh my God, you know, we were just both thrilled. It was just a really epic moment, you know, so it was just cool to see. You know, so here are some of my suggestions for things to watch, you know, these days, some really cool stuff I'm very excited about. And it's 12:45, so I'll go through quickly before I kind of wrap things up here. But Spirit Rangers just came out on Netflix. You know, one of the producers is a wonderful friend of mine. His name is Joey Clift. Chris Valencia produced it, and she said, this is the show I wanted to see when I was a kid. These are 3 young kids who are Spirit Rangers, and they change into a bear, a turtle, and a red-tailed hawk. It's just absolutely adorable. And I got to tell you, it is probably one of the most gorgeous shows I have seen. And it's for kids, and it's about Native American, and it's just really a wonderful, wonderful series on Netflix. It's 10 episodes so far, and each episode has 2 episodes in it. So really wonderful for kids. I recommend it incredibly highly. Molly Denali, Prey just came out. This is my character for, you know, Native Nerd. I do Native Nerd reviews for, you know, Rotten Tomatoes. And, you know, She-Hulk wasn't my favorite, but it was kind of cool to see Mark Ruffalo wearing a GNU Native American t-shirt. I was like, hey, Mark, and I actually talked to Mark, and I said, Mark, what size is that? XXXXL? So we were kind of chuckling about it, but that's an actual Native design t-shirt that he wears in She-Hulk. I have to recommend Blood Quantum, an incredible film about the zombie apocalypse, and Native Americans are immune to the zombie virus. That's the awesomest thing about this. Very sadly, Jeff Barnaby, the director, the opposite corner of where my face is now, he passed away. Devastating, because he was just such a wonderful director, and I wanted to see where things went with this, but just an incredible movie. Incredible movie. Dark Winds with Zahn McClarnon. You know, Zahn McClarnon is doing a lot, man. That is a great show. He's also as his character in Reservation Dogs, but watch Zahn McClarnon. He's going to continue to do wonderful things. That's Kyle Gordon too, as well as in there. It's just a great show. Alaska Daily. Interesting show just came out, and I just interviewed Grace Dove. You can see my interview on nativeviewpoint.com that actually talks about and discusses the injustice of missing and murdered Indigenous women. And ABC even launched a segment on their website, abc.com/MMIW, which was really incredible. And I want to read what they say. In some areas of the United States, Native American women are murdered at rates more than 10 times the national average. Missing and murdered women is a real thing, and it's something very much worth looking into and learning about. You know, there's Marvel Voices came out with a really cool issue, you know, late last year. Reservation Dogs, you know, Rutherford Falls, some great shows and things to watch, some cool stuff. And so all this said, after my recommendations, what do we do? You know, they talk about John Smith, you know, John Smith kissing Pocahontas here. And, you know, the fact of the matter is, when John Smith actually came to you know, the East Coast, Pocahontas was about 8 or 9 years old. So it didn't happen that way. And Disney is now posting, you know, cultural sensitivity announcements, like at the beginning of Peter Pan and some of their other films. You know, this programming includes Native depictions of mistreatment of people of cultures. So it's something to notice that Disney's doing. Is everything perfect? No. here's the film I was talking about earlier. Real Engine by Neil Diamond is a fantastic, fantastic program. I recommend it highly. It talks about these atrocities, talks about this stuff, and it's something that I think you would enjoy very, very much. Check it out if you get a chance. Real Engine by Neil Diamond. Possible suggestions on being a great ally is don't make comparisons to other cultures to make a point. Every cultural viewpoint deserves its own distinction. And I get this all the time. I'm so sorry what happened. And I'm like, you didn't do it. Apologies are not necessary for things in the past you can't control. Just listening is a great thing. A quote tweet is a massive compliment. Retweet or commenting on native users' post is really great. And the fact you're here today listening is an incredible and wonderful thing. Thank you. Ways to learn are attending a powwow or checking out powwows.com for powwows in your area. The National Museum of American Indian is gorgeous. Visit my website, nativeviewpoint.com, and you can reach out to me on social media at Vince Schilling, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Tumblr, although I'm not as active on Tumblr, I gotta be honest with you. But TikTok, I'm loving. So thank you so much. Have a fantastic day. Ona is goodbye in Mohawk. I'm on social media. Yes, I did once get to hold an eagle. So that said, any questions? And this is my mom's dog, Rex. So I had to put him in there.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, if you have questions, if you'll just type them in the chat, and we'll look at them there. As you're thinking, I'm just jotting down some things to mention and questions that I had. And just on that last note, the National Museum of the American Indian, the one in DC.
Yes, DC, but there's also one in New York.
Yeah.
Well,
I like the DC one better, primarily because of that food court. That is the
oh my gosh, the food there is
food.
ridiculous, isn't it? It's just, and those are actual, indigenous made items and things like that. And thank you for your comments, folks. You're saying really, really nice things. And I want to say thank you to you, Stephen, for the invitation. Like I said, I mean this sincerely. Not every student is lucky enough to have someone gracious like you and willing to do really great things, so thank you for that. I really do mean that.
Well, thank you. And thank you for providing content for a class of mine in the spring. I have a Native Americans and Popular Culture special topics course that I teach. Yeah. And definitely this is going to be required viewing, because I was going to mention, I'd show them Real Engine in the class. And
oh, you did? Yeah, well, it has that moment with Bugs Bunny.
Yes, it does. There's the premise of the course to a large degree is, and like your thoughts on this, is how the way I've approached this is it seems that for much of the history of Hollywood, Native Americans have represented something else. They were the Japanese in World War II. They were the fear of miscegenation in the 50s. They were the environmental movement. There were sort of white liberal guilt. I think you get that in Dances with Wolves. And it's not until more recent times that you get Native representation by Natives and all of the wonderful programming you talked about. And what I find interesting is, in the beginning of film, if I'm not mistaken, Edison and the early pioneers were documenting Native. They thought, well, they're not going to be around much longer, so we've got to document these people. And they turned on the camera and had them do authentic, buffalo dances and so forth. Yeah. So it's a strange sort of bookending where we are now of starting out documenting actual authentic Native culture, and then it goes to hell in a handbasket, and then we're back around to that.
And I think you're bringing up a good point, because what I will say to that is sometimes things are started with good intentions.
Yeah.
But we all know what road is paved with good intentions. And a lot of times what happens is something may start with an earnest due diligence to do something right. And what happens is the people who want to capitalize upon that premise will then start to do that, and they don't care who they hurt.
Yeah.
So sometimes even the good intentions are done poorly, but what you do is what usually happens, obviously, is that is taken and exponentialized into, awful things. So, by the time we go from 1910 to about 1940, 50, and 60, Native elements were cranked out like, a factory farm or something, because I've seen so many different things like Stagecoach or other films, that you'll see, even, the Western Channel, even like a couple months ago, my wife and I just happened to watch some stuff, and there's a Native actor who had native actor, excuse me, an actor who was dressed as a native who had a roach, and a roach is the name of usually a heterodorma that you see a lot in the Lakota, which are made of porcupine quills. And this guy had what looked to be some sort of weird ostrich feather or something, and he was wearing it on the back of his neck. And then he got in the water, it was like stuck to his face. my wife, I was, because he's like, got the knife in his teeth as he's fighting in the water. It's like, what's happening here? What is happening here? We find it hilarious in as much as it's culturally horrifying.
Yeah.
Because there are some just dastardly things that were done, a couple of decades ago, so that's just the way it is. And the thought that now young people are not subjected to that much, because I don't know of any young people now, they're gonna be like, let's go watch a Western, it just doesn't really happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can laugh at what Mr. Howell, Mr. Magoo playing the Lincoln leader on F Troop, because we don't do that anymore. If we were still doing it, it wouldn't be funny. But I think the fact
right, exactly. Some of the films I even like still have some problematic things with them, and you do the best you can, but there's no excuse for anything made as of now, Yeah. So yes, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Those early Native films did add a lot to Hollywood success. And like I said, those savage Indian stereotypes are what people would show up and watch those films. People would watch those films, and they made a lot of money. Look at Disney, which is trying to do better, but that cultural disclaimer is not at the beginning of Pocahontas.
Really?
It's not there. They didn't put it yet. And that is an out and out lie. That story. I mean, it is completely wrong. Completely wrong.
Well, I don't know if any other folks have really seen it, but The New World by what's his name? The Flame filmmaker made the Red Line. I just when it came out, the one with Colin. I'm losing names today, but it's the Pocahontas story, live action, sort of thing, and it's as historically inaccurate as the Disney film. At least the Disney film has songs,
right?
Very, very disappointing.
Right, and native actors, who voice the characters, but a lot of people have kind of put down Pocahontas for a long time, but it is very problematic. But it's troubling. But I have to say that Disney is doing everything it can to clean up its mess. They are actively seek cultural consultants. They actively speak to their actors and actresses on set to make things are culturally relevant and culturally respectful. And you're going to see a lot of that in Disney's Echo.
Yeah.
You will see that, because they are using legitimate, native regalia, actors as well as, extras.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you about that. So next Thursday evening, I've invited a few Catawba folks who we work with, folks from the Catawba Nation, to watch. We're gonna screen some clips from Rutherford Falls and Reservation Dogs, and just sort of talk about their reaction as Native Americans to this representation. But one of the bits I wanted to show was the episode of Rutherford Falls where Terry and the female main characters, Reagan, thank you, are consultants on Adirondack, right? Which is clearly a parody of the Kevin Costner show, Yellowstone? So I'm just wondering about your experience with that. Was it in any way comparable to what we saw in the?
You know what? It's humorous because it's true. There are some very similar things there, and a lot of humor lies in truth. And that's one thing I have to give Rutherford Falls credit for, is that they touch on a lot of issues that are hilarious because they're true, and they are funny. And a lot of my friends and a lot of fellow Native folks I've talked to said, "Oh my gosh, yep, they they hit the nail on that." And, everything has its nuance, and everything's a little different based on reactions, etc. but there are a lot of really wonderful things that happen on that show that are wonderfully representative of Native culture in the funniest ways. And that's why I really enjoyed it. I would have loved to see at least one more season, but it is what it is. And they had a good run in what they did, and it was fantastic. It's just a great show.
It's hilarious. And I think it was listen to your discussion on Pop Culture Happy Hour that I borrowed the term for that I'm now just calling GWA, the goofy white ally.
Ed Helms is great, isn't he? He's a good GWA, as to use your term. He's a good guy.
It's a good
I really like him a lot. I really just like Ed Helms a lot. And I just saw someone ask about podcasts. Five Plain Questions is really, really a nice podcast. I can do some more research and look it up. Maybe if you follow me on Twitter, I'll look up some podcasts for you and I'll share them for you.
Well, I can mention that if you look up Vincent's name and NPR, there are a couple of recent NPR programs that have Vincent and others talking about this very subject, Native American representation in film and television, and very entertaining and not that long. I did want to mention because
there we go, Vince Schilling. There we go.
We were talking about Song of the South. It's funny to me that my older brothers still make fun of me because I was 5. I think you and I are the same age. I was 5 or 6.
Okay.
And
that song Zippity Doo Dah and all that stuff. Yeah,
but when the little boy is almost killed by the bull or whatever. Spoiler alert. That's that like you'll ever see.
Good luck finding that movie.
but apparently I started crying just sobbing over it. My brothers just continue to make fun of me, but the retellings of the Brer Rabbit story in that are great. I mean, they're horribly offensive in the way they're represented.
Oh yeah,
the stories themselves are really well, and really to a certain degree, I think that sparked my interest in folk tales, and it made me a folklorist in some way, sort of laid the foundation for that. But it's not.
I don't even remember that movie. I think I saw it once when I was a kid, or I don't even remember.
I remembered it in no way as an offensive movie, and that I had to stop.
See, the thing is I watched a lot of Bugs Bunny. I watched a lot of these things that were horribly offensive. And to go back a little bit about your question is, I was interviewing Stanley Volant, who was a Native surgeon, First Nation surgeon, and he said he used to watch, and he was about my age too, and he said he used to watch Westerns when he was a kid and not realize that it was him. He's like, I would never be like those dumb people, and then he realized later when he got older, that was supposed to be representing him. Yeah. And I was like, wow. Yeah. He didn't even make the connection. So it's pretty wild.
I think that's in the opening of Real Engine where he talks about playing cowboys and Indians, and they all wanted to be the cowboy. Because,
and I love Charlie Hill. The best part of that movie is Charlie Hill going, love that movie.
You were in trouble.
Yeah. Well, hey, Stephen, thanks for everything. I appreciate so much you invited me today. I really had a wonderful time, and I really appreciate being invited.
Well, thank you. Do we have any other questions? Let's see if we have anything else. And just a quick commercial. Vincent will be back at 7 p.m. this evening. And so if you know of folks who would so-and-so would have really enjoyed this. Well,
Native American Calling. Yeah. Fantastic program.
Oh, yeah.
I've been on it many times.
Okay, we'll have to look into that. And then tomorrow at 11 a.m., we are continuing in person and online with Sandra Schulman, former colleague of yours, I guess, at Indian Country Today. Who'll be talking about the rise of Native Americana, particularly Peter Lafarge and the band Redbone. And then on Monday at 5:30 p.m., we have an artist talk with Marcus Dunn, who's from the PD Indian tribe here in South Carolina, whose work is on display at our center right now. Awesome. And the rest of our events are on the schedule on our social media if you'll check those out. And next week we'll be talking about some of these programs, the TV programs that Vincent's talked about. So I think that's all. Are there any other questions? How about live?
Quite a great program. Good for you, Steve. Wow,
well, thank you.
Awesome.
Feel free to tune in.
Okay.
All right. We'll see you at 7, and everybody else. Thanks for joining us, and have a good afternoon.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.